Dear friends, welcome to yet another installment of Strategic Power. In this video, we are going to take a look at what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo, explaining the crisis and its main actors, its importance, and more. Before we get started, if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing and tapping the bell to stay up to date and be notified when we release new videos. Earlier this month, in the semi-finals of the Africa Cup of Nations, the Congolese football team covered their mouths and put two fingers together, like a gun to their temple, protesting the violence in their country and the apparent lack of interest from the world. A resurgence of violence in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is the latest event in a long series of conflicts dating back decades, which has created one of the most complex and prolonged humanitarian crises in the world. But with the world's eyes focused mainly on other conflicts, such as those in Gaza and Ukraine, the Democratic Republic of Congo receives relatively little attention, even as anti-Western protests erupt in the country and rebel groups fight to gain more ground and control over valuable natural resources. The Democratic Republic of Congo is extraordinarily rich in natural resources, but so far, this has resulted in exploitation rather than wealth for the average Congolese person. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was the extraction of ivory and rubber from the state that created immense wealth for Europeans, particularly for the King of Belgium, while having a catastrophic impact on the native population. During World War II, Belgian Congo's uranium was used by the United States to build the world's first atomic bombs. After Congolese independence in 1960, the lucrative copper mining operations and other minerals in the south of the country contributed to the attempted secession of the province of Katanga, supported by the Belgians, which was part of the larger Congo crisis. And today, the rich tin, gold and coltan deposits in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo play a key role in the conflicts that continue to plague the region. Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has been plagued by violence from several armed groups for almost 3 decades. The region is also located right on the eastern border of the Democratic Republic of Congo, near Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, with Rwanda in particular having played and continues to play a disproportionate role in the history of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Perhaps the most prominent non-state armed group in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is the March 23 movement, known as M23, composed primarily of ethnic Tutsis. The group's name refers to the date in 2009, when the Congolese government signed a peace agreement to end an earlier Tutsi rebellion. Years later, in 2012, M23 launched a new rebellion, accusing the Congolese government of failing to comply with the previous agreement. The group captured territory and even came to control Goma, the capital of North Kivu, before the uprising was finally defeated by the Congolese army and UN forces, which drove M23 out of the country. But a decade later, in 2022, M23 resurged with a major new offensive, once again destabilizing the volatile region, prompting military interventions and mediation efforts by the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community. However, the tenuous ceasefires have really not endured, and fighting flared up again since early this year. It appears M23 is now aiming to capture the strategic city of Masisi, located just 25 kilometers northwest of Goma, home to nearly 2 million people. This has sparked fears that the group once again is aiming to take Goma. The key point to know about the group is that, although it is a non-state group, it is backed by the Rwandan government, a factor that has greatly contributed to the tension between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Despite Rwanda's denials, UN experts cited solid evidence of Rwandan support for M23, not only logistical support, but also the supply of weapons and, at times, sending troops to fight alongside the rebels. It was even reported this month that M23 rebels may have fired an alleged anti-aircraft missile from the Rwandan army at a UN observation drone. According to a UN experts report from last year, the aim of the Rwandan army in the Democratic Republic of Congo was to bolster M23, providing troops and material, and using it to secure control over mining areas, gain political influence in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and annihilate the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR, by its French initials. The FDLR, incidentally, is an anti-Rwandan government rebel group active in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, with alleged support from the Congolese government, and is considered the main rival of M23. The group is dominated by ethnic Hutus, many of whom fled Rwanda to the Democratic Republic of Congo after perpetrating the 1994 Rwandan genocide against the Tutsi population. The genocide preceded the First and Second Congo War, which involved the Democratic Republic of Congo between 1996 and 2003, resulting in the deaths of millions of people and the participation of troops from over half a dozen African countries, with repercussions still felt to this day. Rwanda's support for M23 helped trigger anti-Western protests in the Democratic Republic of Congo, due to the generally warm relations the Rwandan government has with the West. Protesters in the Congolese capital Kinshasa recently gathered in front of the American, French, and other Western embassies, as well as in front of the UN mission headquarters, where they burned tires and flags. The failure of the United Nations peacekeeping mission over 2 decades long to stabilize the region has also contributed to anger among the local populace. And following a request from the Congolese government, the UN mission will withdraw from the country by the end of 2024. Adding to the complex situation in the region, there are a huge number of other groups, over 100 in fact, operating in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Some other prominent ones, besides M23 and FDLR, are the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, linked to the Islamic State, and the Codeco group, predominantly from the Lendu ethnic group. In this multifaceted conflict, the various armed groups have committed horrendous acts: massacres, sexual violence, use of child soldiers, and more. The conflict in the region has had terrible humanitarian consequences. According to Save the Children, at least 150,000 people have been displaced since February 2nd, in addition to 1 million who were displaced in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in 2023, which in turn formed only a fraction of the approximately 7 million internally displaced people across the entire country. The situation in Goma and its surroundings, which is filling up with refugees from the surrounding areas, is particularly worrying, as fighting and roadblocks prevent vital supplies from coming in and out. With the closure of the UN mission, pressure now falls on the newly deployed Southern African Development Community Force to help the Democratic Republic of Congo finally establish lasting peace and stability, something that has proven incredibly elusive over the past decades. There is no single reason why the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo receives less attention than, say, Gaza or Ukraine. For many of us, it is geographically more distant, and for some, it may seem less significant geopolitically. But the scale of the humanitarian situation, the international and geopolitical angle, and the fact that the device you are viewing may well be powered by Congolese materials means it deserves far more attention than the rest of the world currently gives it. Faced with the unfolding humanitarian tragedy in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it is imperative that the world wake up to the brutal reality that has plagued this nation for decades. As the world's eyes divert towards other global crises, millions of lives are being destroyed and entire communities are being torn apart by a bloody, endless conflict with no end in sight. Faced with this grim landscape, it is incumbent upon us to question how much more blood must be spilled before the international community takes effective action to resolve this humanitarian crisis. The world is watching, but is it really acting? Comment below and be part of this crucial conversation.